Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on Mastering Cloud Cost Optimization hosted by Impetus and Cloud. Cloud is one of the most sought after technology in today's world. Organizations of each and every size are moving towards cloud. So the cost management becomes a really important topic to talk about. What we are going to talk about is the current state of cloud spend, how organizations are using cloud. What are the challenges in managing the cost across different cloud environments that the organizations have? What is a typical strategy and approach to manage cost and optimize those? We're going to talk about some of our best practices in terms of how we have solved this problem for a lot of our customers. We are going to share a couple of real case studies where we have solved these challenge and help customers save thousands of dollars. And at the end, we are going to talk about a unique solution that we have created that helps in the overall cloud visibility and cost management. Now, let me quickly introduce you to the speakers for today's session. My name is Mustafa Batriwala, and I work as a Director of Technology with Clara. I am responsible for product innovation and have been helping enterprises in complex cloud migrations and modernizing their data platforms and applications. I have Ravi Kelotra with me, who is a senior lead and has worked extensively on complex migrations, DevOps, and performance assignments in the area of cloud. We both are very happy to be here and share our experience. As I mentioned, cloud is being used by each and every enterprises. In fact, organizations, if they have to be relevant in today's world, need to have a cloud strategy. Cloud is a no-brainer. Organization of each and every size across domains, be it healthcare, banking, financial, edtech, aviation, everyone is trying to adopt cloud. They want to use cloud to enable them to scale, to realize business goals, to identify new revenue opportunities. And as per Gartner's survey, the cloud spend is going to touch $500 billion this year, which is a huge amount. And this clearly says that why FinOps is becoming a very important discipline in cloud cost management. With more and more enterprises moving towards cloud and the cloud budgets increasing for the enterprises, FinOps becomes a tool to manage cost and have visibility across the cost usage. But are enterprises really happy with the way they are using cloud? With some of the survey, it says that enterprises have self-realized that almost 30% of their cloud budget is wasted. That means if they would have been following a lot of best practices, they were monitoring the cost closely, they had some governance in place, they would have been able to save almost 30% of the budgeted cost. And for some of the enterprises who have spent in the millions and millions of dollars, 30% becomes a huge sum of money. Cloud cost is coming up in discussions in all business meetings, right from executives to architects to enterprise teams. They are all discussing that how to save cost, how to optimize the cloud resources. And this is on the top agenda of each and every executive. It comes in all the planning meetings. That becomes an important topic to talk about. Now, why cost management in cloud is so challenging? Why people are not able to optimize cost? Why there is so much overspend that we are seeing? Let's look at some of the major challenges that we have seen in a lot of our engagements. A lot of cloud providers, in fact, all cloud providers comes with a cost management solution. But these solutions are limited to just billing and invoicing. The teams are using the cloud resources. They see at the month end what is the cost they incurred. The teams that are responsible for billing are the ones who are not using the cloud. They are the furthest away. The development teams are the ones who are using the cloud. There's a disconnect. So this centralized cost monitoring is something which limits the enterprise when it scales into the cloud. Teams are not knowing what they are using, how they are using, and how cost is impacted because of that. cloud getting more and more adopted in the enterprises, there are hundreds and thousands of cloud resources getting launched. Now, how do we know if they are still in use? Certain teams wanted to do some R&D, they created some environment and then left it running. Dev teams need certain resources every morning, but they could be running all throughout the night as well because they are not concerned with the cost. They don't have visibility. And there is no mechanism where we know that what's happening with the resources, which is one is being used, which is not. Now, cloud cost management is a challenge in its own, but in today's world, enterprises are embracing multi-cloud. The reasons could be many, the compliance or the DR environments or any else. But it adds another layer of complexity where now cost is getting distributed across multiple clouds. How do we get a single view? How do we know that which teams is using one cloud, which teams is using other cloud, and how they are doing? Because of the centralized cost monitoring, there is lack of accountability between the development teams. Development teams doesn't know how they are spending the cost, right? They are just developing using the services, but in multi-team environment, nobody knows which team is using which resources. The current solutions are reactive in nature. That means the focus is more on monitoring. Okay, we know, right, that this team is using the cost. This is my monthly cost. Maybe we'll get some alerts at the month end, but this is all reactive. A damage has already been done. Right? How do we move, right, from reactive to proactive? And the focus is more on monitoring rather than optimization. Right? There are very few suggestions, recommendations coming from the cloud providers that how do I optimize the cloud utilization? Mostly it will be around some dedicated capacity, reserved instances, but nothing on the ground which can help me optimize the resource. Now, we have faced these challenges numerous times working with some of the largest organizations on the planet. And based on that, we have come up with a very systematic and incremental approach towards cost optimization. But cost optimization is an incremental by nature. We cannot be satisfied by doing one optimization and see that everything is, we will onboard new teams, there would be new services coming in. So the optimization has to be continuous. What we say is that we start with an SS phase where we do on the ground analysis of what's happening in the cloud, right? What is the current spend? How many teams are using it? What are the optimization opportunities? Which regions, which services are being used? It would require interviews with different teams. It would require analyzing the current data, going through the past invoices, analyzing the historical patterns as well. This will yield us to the optimized phase where there would be a lot of recommendations coming out of the previous phase. Now, based on that, there would be intelligent decisions that can be taken, like which teams are consuming more of the cloud resources. What could be the budget allocated for that? How do we use monitoring controls where we know if certain resources are not used, that they are still running? How do we map the cost back to the teams as well? So we know that who is accountable for the resources that are getting created. That will actually help us to optimize the resources, reduce the wastage, and this will eventually give us the cost benefit. We will set up a governance structure in place so that the cost management doesn't become an afterthought. We actually think about the cost right during the development and design phase itself. And that's where teams becomes self-empowered and self-managed. They have a clear visibility of how they are contributing to the overall cost of the enterprise. The focus shifts from just monitoring to the optimization. There are processes defined, best practices established as per the teams, and those are followed throughout the life cycle. Teams start moving away from a traditional monitoring to a proactive monitoring where an anomaly detection happens, where we are able to identify the patterns earlier in the month, right? So that we can take appropriate action. The forecasting, the budget management starts happening so that the teams which require specific budget can be allocated depending on their usage. Now, with this, let me call my colleague Ravi who has extensive experience in some of these projects, and he can throw a lot of light on some of the best practices that can be used for cost optimization.
Thanks, Mustafa. Good morning, everyone. So, cost optimization is always a talking point in executive meeting, and today I am really happy and excited to be a part of this interesting discussion. So, let's look at some of the best practices that we follow and recommend to our customers. The shift left, right? So, based on our experience, the first and foremost is to enforce the cost optimization as early as possible. During the development cycle itself, the team must be aware about the current and future resource requirement. They should keep it optimized and come up with the right sizing of the resource. Definitely, it may take multiple iteration to find out the right size of a resource, but we should always keep it as one of our primary goals. Second is automation. So basically, like go for serverless services as much as possible, where you need to pay only for the duration you consume it and not around the clock like 24/7. If serverless is not an option, right, then you can design some automated flows that will spin up the resource for you. You will utilize those resources and then finally you will tear it down. For long running resources, we can opt for various saving plans offered by various cloud providers. For example, like we can go for reserved instances for long duration that can reduce your bill by more than 50%. Along with automation, we can go for tagging and chargeback. So we should use proper tagging for the resources. We should encourage our team, and if needed, we can enforce them to assign a proper tagging to the resource. Definitely, tagging can help us to identify the stale resources, point of contact for those resources, and it will also help us to charge back to various teams based on the consumption. On the storage optimization, or to reduce the cost of storage, we can set up the data transition rule to move the infrequent access data to different but less expensive storage classes. Many times we have observed, right, the team enables the versioning of the data. We need to we need to revisit and check it time to time, right? Do we really need all the version of an object, or we can just keep 2 or 3 versions of an object to recover them in case of any accidental deletions? On anomaly detection, we should set up the billing alerts on a daily and monthly basis to identify any anomaly or sudden increase in the cost, and even we can plan some automated remediation steps for that. So whatever the cost optimization techniques that we have discussed so far fits in all the cases. But now, as we have seen a growing trend wherein enterprises are offloading traditional data warehouses and moving towards the cloud warehouses or modern data platform, enterprises are basically looking to create a single source of truth for efficient decision making. And with our extensive experience in this area, it is worthwhile to talk about some of those specific practices for controlling the cost in such a multi-million dollar initiatives. So if you'll see like the optimized pipeline, so whenever we build a data lake or a data platform on cloud, we basically migrate our historical and incremental data on the cloud. Now to move the incremental data, basically we usually build the data pipelines, and it becomes very critical to select the right service for the right use case at the right time. For example, AWS recommend this Snow family for historical data migration. If the data size is especially in the petabytes or exabyte, and it recommends the Glue or EMR service for incremental data migration. All the resources spin up by this data pipelines to run your data migration process needs to be monitored and optimized time to time. Then we should choose wisely between the managed and serverless services. The key difference between managed and serverless service is the way auto scaling works. In managed service, basically, we have the liberty to auto scale the environment based on some custom parameters like CPU memory. But in serverless, it is mostly being handled by the cloud provider. So we have to take the right decision whether we want to go for a serverless or managed services. Then proactive monitoring is like sometimes it happens that your data pipeline fails in the middle of the execution without terminating the resource or even without sending any kind of alerts. That can lead to idle and long running resources. So always set up rules and alerts to identify such idle and long running resources. Ideally, the resource utilization should be within the 60 to 80% range. If it is less than or more than that, then it is right time to change the resource size. Then decouple compute and storage, right? So nowadays the cloud providers are coming with segregation of compute and storage scaling that you can also leverage based on your use case. This can help us to optimize the storage cost when you just need the scaling on the compute side and vice versa. Then efficient logging, you can set up the enough logging statements and logger level based on environment to troubleshoot any failures and to reduce your debugging cost. And don't forget to set up the retention policy for this log to get purged after a certain log period. Then the last one is the transient resources, right? Transient and as well as the like schedule your resources or schedule your triggers to pause and stop this costlier services. For example, Redshift cluster. We can pause this cluster during our off hours, especially for the lower environment, which can save a good amount of cost for us. So with this, I think I'm sure that some of the practices that we talked about will help you in optimizing the cloud spend in your organization. Having said that, let me briefly share some of our customer success stories where we were able to achieve considerable saving by following these practices. So, one of the interesting experience that we have with one modernization project, we executed this project for one of our customer who is leader in providing the inside sales and renewal management solution for enterprises. As part of this engagement, we basically migrated the EC2 instance based microservice into Kubernetes managed microservice. And it's not just migration of services from one platform to another, but we have also automated the entire infrastructure setup and application deployment using Jenkins, Flux CDs, Helm, and custom automation script. So after the successful migration, we have now the liberty to create the environment based on demands, application rollout by a single click, and tear down if not needed this particular environment, and start using our entire infrastructure efficiently. That basically lead us to reduce the overall cost by 60%. And it's not just about cost. Along with the cost saving, as Kubernetes provide the faster deployment, auto scaling, and rollback mechanism, we are able to achieve our API deployment in less than 2 minutes, and our overall environment scaling up is now 5 times faster than the previous one, and we have observed almost 90% reduction in bootstrap and deployment failure. So that's all about, I think, a modernization project. Now let's look at one of the experience with data platform cost optimization. And Mustafa was a key member in that project. I would request him to share the solution approach and show how we address the cost challenges. Over to you, Mustafa.
Thanks, Ravi. That was really insightful. And I know a lot of these best practices, teams at times overlook them. And I remember for the logging, I think one of the teams were using CloudWatch, everything was getting logged. And the moment they optimized a lot of other services, and then the highest service was CloudWatch. And that's where they came to know that CloudWatch is significantly eating the cost. So that's true. Thanks for sharing that. Now, let me share a very interesting case where we set up a data lake in AWS for one of the US based financial customers. And as a lot of enterprises do, we started small. We started with a pilot where one of the data source was migrated to cloud and a couple of use cases were built. The pilot was a huge success. The executive sponsors were very happy and they could see a lot of potential opportunities to create a lot of new business use cases. In no time, the one data source actually increased to almost 500 data sources being migrated and hundreds of use cases getting developed. The data volume increased from GBs to petabytes of data. Everyone was happy, teams were happy, but IT teams started feeling the heat. The cloud cost was spiraling. It surged exponentially, and that's where a lot of concerns started coming back. We were not able to map who is contributing to the overall cost, which teams are using, even a team with a smaller data source or a team with hundreds of data sources. We don't know who is contributing to the cost. And that's where the team started with a cost optimization journey. We established some ground rules, some best practices. Tagging policies were enforced that allowed us to measure and charge back the use case teams based on the resources they are being provisioned. A proactive monitoring was set up where we were able to identify which resources are running for a longer period of time. We're using AMR for data processing, which is very costly service. Now, any AMR cluster running for a longer time without any job is something which is wasting the resources. So we started identifying and we started terminating a lot of these idle resources automatically in our lower environments. Based on tags, we were also able to identify that which teams require what kind of capacity. Not all use cases were same. So we optimized our data pipelines to use the optimal storage based on the use case requirements. Started using some of the spot instances for data processing without compromising on the SLAs. Set up the lifecycle management to move a lot of old data into a cold storage as well. Now, with all these mechanisms, right, with all this cost governance structure in place using a lot of different tools, we were able to save almost $50,000 on a monthly basis. What it also enabled us that we were now able to run more use cases, bring more data into the lake, just without having an impact on the cost as well. Now, based on our experience with multiple such customers, we see that cloud cost optimization is a challenge, and it is a repetitive challenge we have seen across the project. So we tried to solve it in an innovative manner and came up with a multi-cloud cost explorer. It's a platform that helps us to monitor and manage the cost across different clouds and different teams. It provides executive the view to visualize the cloud usage across different teams so that they can plan the budgets, as well as it gives the development teams an access to the costing information so that they know that how the cost is getting spent, how their budgets are getting utilized, which services are eating up the cost. A lot of out of the box analytics and insights are generated from the solution that helps you take easy decisions. We're able to identify the anomalies. If certain services start suddenly incurring more cost, so it could signal that something is going wrong, or there are new regions which comes up. This entire solution was integrated with Slack, Teams, Jira, ServiceNow, so that if there is anomaly which happens, it raises an appropriate incident and teams have a look at it. This helps us to do a root cause analysis and structured analysis for any anomaly which happened in the system. Not only it helps us to take certain raise alerts, but it also helps us to take certain automated actions. For example, if the cost is increasing, there is an alert. So go and look at some of the unused instances in the lower environments and stop them. Or look for any volumes which are lying there not being used, either delete or archive them into a local storage. So it actually helps us to be data aware as well as provide a lot of intelligence and take some actions as well based on the intelligence. Now, let me take you through a brief journey of the solution and show how it looks like and what are the capabilities that we were able to use in the project. You are seeing the multi-cloud dashboard, which provides information from all different clouds. We can see in an organization that there are multiple clouds being used, what is the utilization? If there are multiple teams, multiple accounts, what's the utilization across different accounts, different projects, different resource group, and a trend. Now, this information helps the stakeholders and the executives to plan and see that how the clouds are being used. If there is minimal usage of some of the accounts, can they migrate those accounts into a single? Can the consolidation happen? Or which are the teams that are mostly utilizing? Once we want to get into the details, we can click on this and we can get into a detailed dashboard, which can be used by project managers and engineering directors to take a drill down approach into the overall usage across their portfolio and business units. You can see the costliest region, which are the regions where we are spending, which are the costliest services, and how we are comparing as with the budget allocated. One of the important things is the tagging, right? So how do we ensure tagging is there? Now with this tag compliance view, we know that almost 90% of the cost is coming from the tag resources, which is correct, right? As a best practice, this is what should happen. Now, one of the important thing is that how do we move from just the monitoring of data to optimization? And that's where we have created specific drill downs for each of the service to know that how I can reduce the developer's time to know where the problem is. If there is an alert that happens, we know that, okay, what could be going wrong in the system. We can categorize the cost based on business units, departments, projects. We can show a daily trend. So we know that if there is certain anomaly, if there is a sudden spike on the day, actually we can catch it right there and there itself. The region also helps us to consolidate. If there are multiple regions being used, can we start using same regions for different teams, right? So that helps us to reuse a lot of resources as well. And then for the optimization, we have provided the service detail view where we just not only show that which service is taking time, but which operation and which resource is taking time. Now imagine the time it takes for a developer to go and identify that which resource is running longer, access through multiple invoices, billing, data. This information is readily available. Maybe one of the NAT gateways has been running longer, which is not being used. So we can directly take an action directly from here itself. So it could save valuable development efforts in order to debug any cost anomaly and others. At the same time, there are different views to know the tagging. The tagging can happen from departments, username, Jira as well. And then there are alerts which comes up, right? Certain alerts could be related to budget violation, while some would be from the anomaly detection. And then there are out of the box recommendations which comes in based on the historical usage patterns. There would be recommendations that how do can we optimize the cost, right? So these recommendations are based on our experience across multiple such projects. Another important capability that we have added here is that it allows us to take actions as well. Let's say if some EC2 instances are not being used, we can actually stop it. We can actually schedule a complete start and stop of any environment so that during peak hours, we can have the environment running, but during off hours, everything can be brought down. And similar details are available across the cloud. So there could be a different way where Google presents the cost data versus AWS. But as a user, you don't have to worry about that. This solution takes care of that, where we are able to interpret the Google or the Azure data in the same manner as we are doing with the AWS data. So we just need to look at the trends, the data, and take certain corrective actions. We are able to even here we are able to pinpoint that where exactly the cost is getting spent. Right? So the VPN tunnel is almost costing us a lot of things, whether it is still needed or not needed. Now, with this, you would be very interested to know that how this solution is developed. We have actually used this solution across customers and helped them save thousands and thousands of dollars. We have used a platform, Clara, in order to develop this tool. So Clara provides us out-of-the-box capability with its insight delivery mechanism and workflow and process automation capabilities that helps us to connect to different clouds, fetch the data, perform all the processing and transformation, and generate the required insights. With its unique capabilities, it just not only fits in for the cloud use cases, but it actually is a fit for a lot of application lifecycle management and DevOps use cases where we want to measure the DevOps maturity using the DORA flow metrics, or we want to monitor our continuous release and deployment pipelines, or we want to enforce certain compliance, or we want to have a early warning system where we want to know if a project is at risk or are we drifting away from the required velocity. With this, we come to the end of the session. I hope we were able to provide you valuable inputs that will help you to optimize the cost for your cloud accounts. We are open for any questions, and I have seen questions coming up in the chat window. So here's the first one. So there is a question that how the cloud cost solution that we develop is different from the traditional solutions that are offered by the clouds. Now that's a very interesting question. The cloud solutions are mostly proactive in nature, reactive in nature. They only provide the billing and invoice details. We want to know which services are using, which resources are using. We have to drill down into invoices. At the same time, there is no drill down view at the resource level. So either we have to build our own custom solution using the cloud data or use an intelligence platform that can provide cost details across different clouds. So with Clara, we are able to fetch this data across clouds, perform a lot of intelligent transformation, and generate out of the box recommendations and anomaly detection. At the same time, we are able to take a lot of actions which isn't possible in case of the cloud tools. We have to rely on the operations team to take certain necessary action. And that's where this solution scores over the cloud tools and helps team to manage and optimize the cost. So there is another one. So Ravi, I think this is for you. So you talked about the shift left approach. So how actually can you provide some details at how actually shift left would work in case of cloud cost management?
Sure, Mustafa. So, and this is very relevant question, right? So, usually when we start our this development or migration journey on the cloud, team are mostly focused on the security, performance, and ease of development aspect. Other aspect like the scalabilities and this cost optimization are left for the later stage, right? So basically, while deciding the technologies, then we need to contemplate using serverless versus managed versus self-hosted options. So we have to decide on that side before we start any kind of a development. And along with that, different use cases might demand different deployment options. We should also consider that. And nowadays, like as I said, right, we have the option to decouple the compute and storage for data platform, so that each of these operation or each of these resource can scale independently. So somewhere this shift left approach is enabling us to think on that direction, where we just not focus on this. Uh, Development and others, we should think on the aspect like scalabilities and cost optimization as early as possible. And that's where the shift led approach helping us.
Thanks, Ravi. I think that was very helpful. We have time for just one more question, and we have a question that how our data is secured when we fetch data related to cost from our cloud accounts. This is with respect to the custom solution that we've done. So the cloud solution that we have created is completely secure. It uses the authenticated APIs from different cloud providers to just access the cost data. It doesn't go in and read any of the other data lying in any of the buckets or related to the resource. Based on the cost data itself, we get relevant details where we are able to identify the bottleneck resources and the utilization. Now, with this, we come to an end of this session. I think thank you all for listening this. I hope we are able to share relevant details. And in case of any further questions, any assistance required in any of the optimization challenges that you're dealing with, feel free to reach us at Impetus or Clara. Thanks everyone, and have a good day.